So, in this dynamic new book, The Restorative Journey, the Theory and Application of Restorative Practices.
Well done.
The author writes a chapter, Shame That Helps, Shame That Hurts, right? So as I was writing that chapter, I was thinking about this misunderstood notion of shame and how we in the restorative practices world think about shame. And so, Steve, I know that, shame is a very important concept for you to explain and understand. Let's start with you. Why is shame so important for us to get in this
Because
work?
I think it speaks to so much of people's behavior, right? I mean, we want to be in the positive affects, the interest, excitement, the enjoyment, joy. And we want to share that with others. We want to mutualize that, right? So we want to have bi-directional interest, right? And so as soon as something gets in the way of that, now again, not a complete blockage of it where something else completely takes over, but when something else gets in the way of that and doesn't fully extinguish what we were originally connected to, it creates a lot of feelings. We're talking about the compass of shame, and a number of things come up. And so I think it's critical that we understand that to help those that are like professionals or just human beings choose wise ways to respond to what people are exhibiting and not taking it so personal. Not ignoring it, not that it doesn't have an impact because it can create some stuff in us, but just really being wise about how we respond to it. I think understanding shame allows us to do that.
What do you all think? I think shame is something that we always point out in this work as we're trying to support people in coaching and consultation. But how does it play out? How does an understanding of shame help to deepen your work?
I think it's critical when you're trying to hold folks accountable, understanding that there might be some shame that occurs, but as you're modeling your vulnerability, as you're modeling explicit practice, as you're modeling the behaviors that you want to see, that they see shame as not as a way of disconnection, but shame as a way of, I know you feel this, but we're in this space and we all have this opportunity to make it right, so it doesn't cause that disconnection that can sometimes happen with shame.
Yeah, and I think for me, it's what shame does is it allows us to humanize even the one who's done the harm, right? Because people are often operating in a response to shame, and if we can name it as shame, right? If we can unpack it as shame, then now it's something that we universally experience. I know what shame feels like, and so when I'm seeing your behavior, I don't have to misrecognize it as defiance, as just you're a horrible person, psychopath in the making, that you might just be a person who's having a shame moment, right? And you're responding by attacking others or attacking self or so. And that's why I think it's so powerful, right? Because it allows us to see each other as human beings, which is first step, I think, towards the healing. Right?
Me too. I find it to be just wonderfully informative. And it helps me to not take things personally. If I know that you're experiencing a shame response and you're attacking me and I'm informed, about what's going on, then I don't have to attack in return. For me, when I see it arise, it's like an indication to kind of like cue the empathy, because I know that your shame cannot survive in a space that is empathetic, and so I can kind of like drown that joint out if I meet you there with all the good feelings.
Did we just hear your shame cannot survive in a space that is empathetic? Whew.
That's good stuff.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. That's very, very real. And I think, and that can speak into our own bias and all those types of things. When you are viewing human interactions, if you will, through this lens, it cuts through all of that. Mm-hmm. That's a powerful statement.
And I think the key is to kind of like tap into the emotion, right? Because I think folks get caught up on the details. Oh, you did this, this, this. And I can't relate to that because I wouldn't have made those choices.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
That's not where you connect. Where you connect is at the feeling level, right? I have been deathly afraid and made this choice. I have been deeply saddened and made this choice. If we can meet where the feeling resides, then we can make it.
Yeah. That's where the humanity comes, right? Mm-hmm. So Steve, we don't have time to get into it now, but you and I have had these long ongoing
Oh, yeah.
conversations around shame and your understanding and leaning into the work of Nathanson, right? And the affects of shame and shame psychology. And me leaning heavily into that work of Braithwaite and reintegrative shame versus stigmatizing shame. So, but what I think we agree on is that shame as a concept, as an understanding, requires those of us to think more deeply about it.
Absolutely.
The practitioners, we have a responsibility to study it a bit more than I think the average practitioners, and I'll just speak for myself, than my level of understanding. And so really digging more and more into the shame piece is going to only heighten and accelerate our work.
Absolutely.
Yeah.